Good afternoon, everyone. Kumar Datatran here with Agile Meridian, and I'm alone this episode of our Agile Shorts, and that's okay. We're going to be talking today about the evolution of the Agile coach, and I've been talking to a lot of my colleagues, my partners, and coaches around in the industry, and agile coaching is something that has taken a hit over the last year or so. Companies are not that they're moving away from agile necessarily, but they're certainly moving away from hiring a number of coaches to help them in their agile implementations, which is actually a good thing. It's a healthy thing. So companies um, have been what's the word, maturing over the last 20 years, and since the Agile Manifesto was written, lots of companies uh, have evolved their own agile practices, right? And lots of companies have tried and failed and tried again and failed again and tried again. And so all through those cycles of failure, learning, growth, these companies have uh, adapted their own way of doing agile and agile methods in their companies, right? So bringing an outside coach may not be something they need. So this talk is really about how do you, and for those of you watching, please, add questions, talk about as I'm talking about these things. So the premise of this talk is really, how do you add value as a coach to the organization that you're coaching? And maybe more importantly, how do you shift your role from that of being an outsider, a coach, sort of observing and helping the organization change, to more of not just an advocate for the change, but also an agent of that change? And I'm sure most coaches feel that they are an agent for that change, and they do what they can to promote that change within the organizations they're in. But really, it's about increasing your impact, increasing your influence on the organizations that you serve, right? So some of the challenges, right? So the challenges are many, but some of them are: there's less demand for pure agile coaches as companies scale back their agile implementations, and for the reasons I mentioned before, companies are more reliant on homegrown approaches to agile. They're not so reliant on Scrum or Scrum Masters and all the roles that Scrum prescribes. In fact, lots of companies have gotten away from the roles because they have inculcated the role, if you will, of a Scrum Master into, say, a delivery lead on a team, and that delivery lead has subsumed that role of the Scrum Master and is helping the team, leading the team, and so on and so forth. And so, as a coach, coaches have been sort of the leaders, the managers and leaders in the companies are, I assume, again, some companies that are more mature are doing this. Some leaders have adopted a coaching mindset, and they are coaching their teams and coaching their products to better prominence. So for coaches, there's a risk that coaches have become maybe a little too specialized, agile coaches. We don't need a coach. We need someone that's more hands-on, that can roll up their sleeves and show us how to do it. And of course, if you're a coach and you're coaching from, using a coaching mindset, and you're asking powerful questions, all those things that you've been trained to do, it may not be what organizations need now, right? They need maybe a different approach. And so maybe you need to upskill as an agile coach and take on some new skills. And what would those be? A lot of agile coaches, myself included, we used to talk a lot, and we used to be very sort of, in some cases, dogmatic about the rules, if you will, of Scrum or SAFe or whatever it might be. I think those things are less important now than they have been, because companies have been through that journey. They've been through Scrum implementations, SAFe implementations, all sorts of implementations. And so maybe what people need more now is a focus on business outcomes. And so as a coach, and you're working with leadership, if you are working with leadership, you ought to be talking about business results, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you are implementing Agile or Smagile or Wagile or whatever it is, right? What matters is the results. And so teach yourself how to speak in a different language without using the Agile buzzwords, without using those things that have served us well and have served organizations well. It's getting back to foundations, getting back to basics. It's helping leadership understand what is the what is the foundation behind the business that they're trying to improve. How are they providing value to their customers? And how can you as a coach help them achieve those results? Yes, there are all the techniques that are available from in the Agile tool belt as a lean Agilist, right? Lean coach, Agile coach, whatever you call yourself. All those are tools. What matters more is how you help the company that you've been hired to help achieve results. And so it's really a focus on results. You can bring other tools into play, OKRs, the 4DX method, the four dimensions of or disciplines of execution, which is more results focused. And as you coach your leaders to focus on results, you can bring in the techniques, the synchronization, the cadence, all the things that make Scrum and SAFe and the other frameworks work. You can bring those in, but they are just a tool. So as a coach, focus on the language, focus on building up a repertoire of language that is more focused on business outcomes. Right? That's one thing you can do. The other thing is expand your horizons. Take more professional coaching classes. I did, a few years ago. I joined John Maxwell, for instance. That was many years ago. It was 2017. And then I joined the Academy of Creative Coaching and got my ACC through the International Coaching Federation. And more recently, I think it was 2 years ago, I got the PCC. What does that do? Well, is it just another credential? In a way it is, but it also taught me techniques to ask the right questions at the right time, to make space for people to have conversations. Because remember, as a coach, you're not there to, as much as the client may want you to roll up your sleeves and do the work, that's not what you're there for. What you're there for is to build capability within the teams that you're coaching, whether it's a leadership team or a product team or whatever it is. You're teaching them how to think for themselves and how to fend for themselves. You're teaching them how to be better practitioners, to deliver results first. And of course, you're teaching them techniques and patterns and all of that stuff. That's all important. But what's more important is the capability that you build within the teams that you're coaching. That will make you successful. That will make you someone that's in demand. And so it's about increasing your level of ability so that you can increase the capability of your client. It may be useful to improve your technical skills. So lots of Agile coaches are employed in technology, right? They bring you in for digital transformation. Now, if you don't know or understand technology, you're more a business coach, which there's nothing wrong with that. That it may behoove you to learn more about the workings, the DevOps, the DevSecOps practices that enable technology teams to be hyper productive. You don't have to become an expert, but you have to know enough to be able to improve the thinking. You're changing mindsets. You're not about teaching them how to do to code or how to use the whatever tool it is that they're using for to deploy code or to automate processes and so on. What you're teaching them to do is to think in those terms. You're helping them become leaders, whoever it is you're coaching, right? And the more you can do that, whether it's technology related or not, the more in demand you're going to be as a coach. I took notes here, that's why I keep looking down. And for those that are watching live, Post your questions in the chat. I should see them. Okay, so post them live. So what else can you do? You can also improve your change management and program management skills, right? So uh, being a coach is primarily about shepherding change in others. And so change management is a core requirement, core skill, being able to facilitate conversations between people, between teams, within teams, on how they're going to deal with the change, whatever the change may be. Maybe it's, you know, maybe the agile is a change. Oh my God, you know, we've got to learn this new Scrum thing and figure out how to do all this stuff. Well, as a coach, your job is to help them navigate the path towards that change. And again, focusing on business results. Why are we doing this change? What is the outcome that we're looking to achieve? And helping build the capability within the team to consume that change, to digest that change, to metabolize that change for the greater good so that they achieve the result that they're looking for. So, you know, getting some training on change management techniques, change management tools, if you will, to add to your tool belt will make you a more in-demand coach. You know, project management projects are not going away. In fact, lots of companies that have gotten away from coaching have gone back to tried and true project management methods. There's nothing wrong with them. Absolutely not. I know some awesome project managers that employ a very agile way of running their projects, right? And so I think coaches that understand this and don't view project managers and program managers as the enemy, and rather as someone else that can help coach, again, towards business results, are going to see more success. And for you yourselves, you may want to brush up your PM skills, right? How is it that you can become a better coach? Is by understanding where the challenges are in a project, right? And thank you, Summer. Hey, Summer, great to see you on here. And I totally agree with what she's saying, right? It is very different. Professional coaching is very different. If you can combine those competencies in your coaching practice as an agile coach, you are going to be more successful. I mentioned this before. Thank you for calling that out. Where was that? Projects. Yeah, projects aren't going away. We are wired to think of things in terms of a project. The human brain is wired that way. Okay, so their projects have a definite beginning, a definite end, and there's stuff that goes on in the middle, right? It is more of a challenge to think holistically in terms of value streams. That's okay. Embrace it. Help your project management brethren, achieve their goals as a coach, right? Ask them the powerful questions that they need to. Be more aware of where PMI is taking project management. They have been for a long time taking it in a more agile direction. So take advantage of that, right? And learn from them and maybe obtain those certifications. A lot of times companies will question the value of agile coaching. What value are you bringing? How can you quantify the value? So it's important. Before I tell you how to do that, I want to say that I am myself very aware of this value conundrum, right? You were brought in as an agile coach to work somewhere in the middle of an organization. You are but a cog in the machine. You're supposed to help this team or teams improve how they work. However, agile coaches have a much broader context. They should be able to see the full picture, at least of where that team sits within the organization, using their system thinking hats to figure out how work comes in and how work gets delivered. by that team or those teams. So how do you determine value? Right? And that this is a challenging question. It really is, especially if you're brought in, as I mentioned, in the middle of the organization as a cog to help some teams. Well, you can work with that team's leadership to, again, determine what is the outcome that you're looking for, and how can I, as a coach, help you achieve that outcome. Remember, you are helping build capability, right? So establish some baseline metrics, and with the team, have the team come up with their goals and how they will measure them, right? The more often you do this, the more successful you'll be. Demonstrate your value to the team by doing that, and your role will get elevated within the organization. You're going to be like, oh wow, what are those teams doing? We want some of that stuff, right? And so you can elevate your value to the organization by showing just how awesome these teams are through your guidance, right? The sooner the team does not need you anymore, the more valuable you're going to be, because hey, you've gotten this team to a place where they can deliver more value to the organization. Of course, this ignores the point that, as many times happens, you leave, the team sort of constricts back to where they were before, because the organization isn't set up to consume all this great value that they're providing. That's a larger conversation, right? And hopefully with the new influence you have, you can speak to leadership about that there are organizational elements that need to be changed. Cliff Berg, of the Agile 2 fame, he has a really nice framework, and he talks about leadership as being where you start with Agile, with any kind of change effort. I couldn't agree more. However, you may not have the influence to start at leadership. They're going to put you where they're going to put you. So how do you make an impact? You've got to speak with and start coaching the leaders of where you are. Right? You got to start with where you are. All right. And finally, I think Agile coaching is changing. Obviously, it's morphing. It's the application of Agile coaching is also changing and morphing more into the business realm, right? So as much as you can leverage additional tools and skills to make yourself a better, fuller, well-rounded coach, from a business perspective, you should do that. You should maybe take product management courses. You should think about what makes a business effective, right? Especially if it's a smaller company. Large companies are no different than small companies, but large companies can have a lot of moving parts. And again, depending on where you're brought in to serve that organization, you may have a limited impact. And so my advice would be to help you become a more in-demand coach is to really understand how businesses work, which I personally have been doing over the past several months. I have my professional coaching practice. I'm an Agile coach. I think that teams and businesses that are not typically where Agile coaches work and live and make money from are the next opportunity. Is businesses. Businesses are the lifeblood of every economy. And all of you Agile coaches, you have amazing experience helping large companies become more efficient, more productive, better engaged employees, and all that. Think of the change you can make with small businesses to help them become more profitable, increase their top line revenue, their bottom line profits, which is what I'm doing, right? And so I'm launching, I'm going to be talking about this more next week as well, launching a new effort, if you will. I'm calling it, well, I'm going to reveal that next week. But my focus is going to be more on smaller businesses, not the typical place for Agile coaches to live. But I'm broadening my horizons and trying to increase my impact and my influence, helping smaller businesses thrive and grow. Actually, it's not just me, my company, Agile Meridian, we're doing that now. We're focusing on small and medium-sized businesses. And outside of the software side, outside of the software realm, and helping them become more effective, grow their people in a more effective way, hire people in a more effective way, hire people that not just with the right skills and talent, but also the right makeup for the team that they're going to be working with. So all these things are important. And so I would encourage you coaches to go out there, learn as much as you can about professional coaching, business coaching, complementary skills that will make you in demand. Because it really, at the end of the day, that's what we should want, right? To be in demand. So any questions? I see there's still several people that are viewing this live show. Questions from anyone? Personally, I can ramble about this all day long. I've got my notes here, so there's things that I haven't talked about that I can talk about, but I want to make sure that this serves you guys as much as possible. So if you have any questions, please ask them. I'd love to help. Seconds, and while I'm waiting for questions to come in, I want to see if I missed anything. I did miss something. Well, I kind of covered it, but not really. So, one of the things that Agile coaches fail to do in my experience, the coaches that I work with, I won't name any names, doesn't make you a bad coach by any means. It's just the training that we've gotten and the focus that's been thrust upon us by our clients is this notion of customer centricity, right? A lot of times we're brought into an organization to coach a team that's far removed from the customer, far removed. And so how do you make the customer real for them? And that's a challenge, right? And so as an Agile coach, you've got to employ techniques in your tool belt. If you don't have them, go learn them. Things like design thinking and persona mapping and personalized experience for the developers, the testers that are on the team, if it is a development team. And make the customer real, even if the customers aren't real, even if it's all they're doing is building software and APIs that talk to other pieces of software and API. Humanize those systems that are consuming the data that the team is producing. Humanize them in some way so that the value is more clear, right? And again, if you don't have those skills, learn them. Reach out to me. I'm happy to teach whatever I know, which isn't much, but it's enough to at least get you started. Nicola, what's your view on leading with continuous delivery, as Agile should never be the goal? Yes, I find if I remove the Agile words, it helps gain buy-in. Absolutely. So I don't know when you joined, Nicola. One of my things I said early in the talk was change your vocabulary, change your language, focus on business outcomes, focus on improving the capability of teams, leaders of teams, to think for themselves, to think more holistically, to think more of the system that they're a part of, and rather than the silo that they may think they're a part of. All right, even if they're in a silo, which they may very well be, help them start thinking about how their silo functions amongst the other silos in the organization, right? And so removing those Agile buzzwords can be really helpful to improving your impact as a coach, your level of impact and influence. Thank you for asking that or commenting there. Any other questions? Okay, let's see if there's anything else I have on my my sheet. One other thing, yeah. So lots of times, coaches they shy away from. Well, I shouldn't say that. I've seen some evidence that coaches downplay their ability to facilitate, downplay their ability to lead discussions and things like that. If that's you, embrace that role. You are a spokesperson for the vision that you were brought into an organization to implement, right? And so step into that role of facilitator, MC, whatever it may be, and you're casting a vision every time you get in front of people. So another question: upskilling, systems thinking, business focus, all good. Good. If given a coaching role for only one or two teams, how to break through to higher levels? Yeah, I did speak. And Matt, thank you for asking. It's been a long time since I've seen you, talk to you. I'm glad you're here. I talked about this earlier. I don't know when you joined. I think the key is to help those teams, one or two teams, become highly productive. So much so that people start to take notice of them. These teams are working. They are working. They have sort of embraced a systems thinking view of the work that they do. They're asking questions. They're requesting assistance when needed. They're delivering value on a consistent basis, on a regular basis. Right? They make commitments. They deliver them. Much to the point where you're not needed anymore as a coach. They are self-managing, almost self-directed, right? And so when you get to that point, your role becomes, for those teams anyway, becomes unneeded. And you can start to advocate to move to other teams, to maybe higher up the chain. And I mentioned this also, sometimes when you leave teams, they will sort of snap back to an earlier configuration, because again, that leadership isn't there, and that's something to guard against. That's something, as a coach, you need to build the leadership skills within the team so that doesn't happen. So they start thinking like you, behaving like you, acting like you. Maybe not you, but the things that make the coaching work, right? They need to do that without you. And so that way you can start to advocate for yourself, to say, hey, I want to take on a bigger role in the organization. I want to help the product development teams. I want to help research and development in the organization. I want to help the C-suite, sort of think about how they can employ these types of capability techniques to get better at what they do. And incidentally, that's where we're focused as a company, Agile Meridian. We're focused on that. Our disruptor method is focused entirely on building capability of teams. And we try to start out with leadership teams, right? So either product leadership, the C-suite is where we start. And it's surprising how companies that have been around for a long, long time, they have no idea how to collaborate together. They get together once a year for their annual planning, and that's it. And so we teach them how to do these things on a cadence. And that goodness permeates, again, if you get high enough. So I don't know if that answered your question, Matt. Hopefully it did. Any other questions? All right. Well, if there's no more, we're going on about 28 minutes. Thank you for joining me live. Next week, I'm going to be holding another workshop. This time, it's going to be more participatory, so it'll be held over Zoom. And we're going to do some more small group activities on how coaches can, what challenges you have. You're going to share those in small groups, and then some strategies to help you up level, if you will, your level of influence and impact. All right, so we're going to follow this up next week, Tuesday. I think it's Tuesday. No, it's Wednesday next week at noon, I believe, Eastern. So join me for that. Until then, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.